So I've been thinking, what's the hardest country to play in this game? So there's several contenders, but the three main ones or four I want to go with are Navarra over here, Tver, and Oman, and over here Tyrol, or some people call it Trent. So why did I pick these four? Well, let's start with Oman first because I'm playing it. So Oman starts off as a one-province nation. That means it takes a while for you to spawn some troops for it to actually get a decent amount of army people, so you could go and conquer other places. Secondly, with Oman, contrary to Hijaz or other Arabian states, generally your coring ideas don't cost that much. So if you're playing Hijaz, for example, it costs 100 to claim the entirety of Arabia. But if you're playing Oman, just this costs 75, which is 3/4 of that. And this desert already gets you well over 100. So this can be partially solved with a rival war, but you still don't get enough political power to finish the job. And that's puts Oman at a pretty big disadvantage, even though it could still probably be fine at the early game start. Now, secondly, for Oman, its neighbor is Hormuz, or Muscat. It depends what you want to call it. Usually people call it Muscat. But if there is a Muscat player, and he tends to be aggressive, he could spawn troops roughly 5 times faster than you. So if he gets 5,000 troops, by the time you only spawn 2,000, and by the time the war declaration happens, you probably have roughly 3,000. You're probably not going to win that. So if there is a Hormuz or a Muscat player, Oman's probably cooked. Politely, you're probably cooked. But anyway, Oman does have some expansion options, into Dawsir or this area, or just take out Muscat before it may become a player, which is an option, or just add the Timurids. But to be fair, if you add the Timurids, Muscat could probably just take you out anyway, because Muscat is pretty powerful in this game, compared to Oman. Now, secondly, we should probably cover Trent. Trent is actually somewhat hard to play in this game. Alright, so let me switch to Trent, but Trent, you have Venice and Austria right next to you. So your only really expansion option as Trent that I could see without a hard war potentially is to go into Switzerland or this area basically. It shouldn't be that hard to claim it, but Austria usually does try and get Trent from what I've seen early game. So Trent is really not that fun, and if it's not Austria, it's usually just Venice. An option you could do as Trent is ally Venice or Austria, usually Venice against Austria. But to be fair, you'd be pretty hard pressed to find a Venice player who wants to help Trent against Austria. Unless they just don't like Austria for some reason, or have a claim on this part of Slovenia. Because you might want to have United Adriatic stuff. Which, I don't blame them. As Venice players usually go for Ferrara, Mantua, and also Milan. They usually try and get Northern Italy. And if there's no Genoa player, they usually go for Genoa and Savoy too. Basically, Venice's idea for getting land, from what I've seen, is usually just Northern Italy. And down to Siena, that's basically it, or Rome. And usually have an Italian game with a Milan player, a Naples player, a Genoa, or a Rome player, or a Florence. Because Florence can form Tuscany. I didn't actually do that yet, in game. But Florence can form Tuscany. So there's a lot of Italian players. And Venice doesn't have that many areas to expand, but it's usually not north because it's just one province. And you don't want to bully Austria over that, because Austria, if you have an enemy in Austria and you have an enemy in Italy, Venice might get just squished. So, as Venice, it's not that great of an idea to ally Trent. So as Trent, your only real idea is to either form your own army, which you have the Oman problem. It takes a long time for you to spawn troops, generally. Especially compared to Austria and Venice, who both have roughly 5 provinces next to each other. Venice has 4, but you have this and this. You probably won't take attrition if you just cross that, or that. So Venice, you still have 5 basically, and in Austria you do have 5. But if you're playing Trent, just going to Switzerland, you should probably be fine. Now, thirdly, let's check out Navarre. Navarre actually does have some claims, surprisingly, which I mean is fine. It's basically just a Basque country. And the thing with Navarre is, it's actually not that hard, but the problem is, if France or Aragon doesn't ally you, or England, you're probably cooked. Unless Spain just can't capture you for some reason. I mean, firstly, you have the Oman problem. You just can't spawn troops that well. But secondly, as Navarre, the strategy usually is to get a coastline. So, what's the best way to get a coastline as Navarre? Like on the Atlantic Ocean, not the Mediterranean. You could probably invade Aragon, probably get something like that, but that's not what we're trying to do here. Navarre is basically just a nerfed Granada, and Granada is actually pretty hard to play. You should probably play it if you're watching. It's a pretty fun game. I had fun playing with it. The Granada video is pretty hard. But anyway, as Navarre, I wouldn't recommend you go for this province here called Vizcaya. Instead, you should go for this one. It's beneath Bordeaux. Basically, in an England-France war, if France is winning, which they generally do from what I've seen, you should just claim Laborde, I think that's what the province is called, and just take it. Just ask England to see it to you. And in case France doesn't just invade you, you should probably be able to keep it and be able to colonize. Generally. Because Spain could just claim Navarre, basically. But I've seen and just invade it. Which, that's not quite ideal for a Navarre player, in my opinion. And also, for Navarre, we have the issue of Aragon. Now, if you can't take this province and there's an Aragon player, if Aragon wants to conquer you, you're probably cooked. But if there is an Aragon player and he's an ally to you, he could probably be a good bulwark against Spain. But then again, remember, you're Navarre. You're one province country, so that's not that easy, generally. But also, you have Portugal and Granada over in that, Iberia, the Iberian powers. And Portugal, you may be able to ally Portugal, but the thing with Portugal is they own Ceuta and an island called Madeira. And Morocco players, if they want to colonize without building a 200-something gold port on Tangiers, it's probably better for them to just conquer a Portuguese island and Ceuta instead of just, build a port. So Portugal could be hampered early game by Morocco. And for Granada, if you want to ally with Granada, Granada is actually not that strong, so it may be a little bit hard to coordinate. Also, you're Spain away, basically. And lastly, for their help, you might be able to get abroad. You have Burgundy here, and occasionally Brittany, some Irish power, Provence, maybe Genoa, or Naples fighting off in Aragon. So, these aren't really viable options, except for maybe Burgundy or one of the not really east, but northward powers. Burgundy, it should be fine, but if in England and Burgundy win against France, and you claim this one province, and England might be a little upset at you. But then again, maybe not, but I don't think England would be on terms to help little Navarre. And with Navarre, you get these claims. It doesn't actually include this. I mean, you can claim for 12 political power, which is actually not that bad. It's better than 170 for, Bordeaux. But in these claim groups, you don't actually get that much. I mean, you do get a claim on one province on the Atlantic, but you don't actually claim that much. The only, big thing you claim is Zaragoza, which is not that big economically, to put it politely. But that's enough of Navarre. Let's go on to the fourth country. And that would be Tver. Now, why is Tver hard? Tver is actually not the hardest in the game, in my opinion. The thing with Tver is you have options. You have Novgorod here and Muscovy here. And Lithuania here too, I guess. And your occasional Horde player. And Veps, I guess. Because Veps players tend to be really skilled at the game. Because they're, playing Veps. So, you have just a Veps player and a Horde player. You could ally them and just team on Muscovy. This way. If you get occupied by Muscovy, you could just flee to the Golden Horde or Veps. Assuming Veps sounds Perm, then you could do a coalition that way. A second way to play Tver is to ally Novgorod and just attack Muscovy with that, because, well, you do have the Oman problem, as Novgorod is helping you. You still probably have enough manpower to help out Novgorod to kick out Muscovy. And Tver doesn't actually spawn with, like, that much stuff. It's, like, basically empty. I realized I was playing Navarra, but Tver doesn't actually spawn that much. You only have a core on Rajev, but that's basically it. It's pretty empty as Tver. But another strategy for Tver is just ally Muscovy outright, and they could just have you as a little, like, funny nation here. You know, as a joke. Because sometimes if you're playing Muscovy, you just keep the depths alive over in the corner, so they might just keep Tver alive as a joke, but if you're being kept alive as a joke, that's not much of a run. So, a last option might be to ally Lithuania, or Lithuania Novgorod, or Horde, or Veps and Horde in Lithuania, and just coalition Muscovy that way. But allying Lithuania, you have an option, because Lithuania could just, like, access you via Kaluga. So, you could stop Muscovy from being able to just siege immediately if Lithuania gets there in time. But if they don't, that's the very probably cooked. So that runs to the top 4. So what, in my opinion, is the hardest? Well, it depends on the circumstance. Tver, for reasons I've given, you have Novgorod and Muscovy, which both may want you. Again, Novgorod could also invade Tver potentially. But how I see it, for scenarios, if we're assuming there's a player playing Muscat, Oman is the hardest in my opinion, because Muscat probably wants to just get out of Oman, unless you keep you alive as a joke, I guess. But if we're covering, like, normal, regular playing, not just, like, unique circumstances or just an occasional Muscat player, then it really depends. But for normal circumstances, like if you're playing the game regularly, it's probably Tver, or it could be Trent. Or Oman, I guess, again. But not really Oman, because there's usually no Muscat player. Navarra really isn't that bad if you get to, like, invade England and ally France. So I'll set this into subcategories. If we're assuming no allies, then Navarre. If we're assuming allies, then this one's a little bit tricky, because it's probably Trent, but Trent doesn't have many ally options, so it's probably Trent, honestly. If we're assuming just, like, base, regular scenario, this one's also a little bit tricky, because all 4 of these are pretty hard. But for a regular game, where you're just playing normally, it might be Trent, not Tver. Tver's pretty hard, but, like, it's not that bad. Sorta. Not really. So, to wrap it up, what's the hardest country in the game? Under regular circumstances, Trent. Under non-regular circumstances, Oman. And, yep, that's about it. Oh yeah, one thing to mention. Albania is also pretty hard because the Ottomans spawn off with a core in Albania. So, we're on the honorable mentions category. So, Ottomans spawn with a core in Albania, which could potentially just cause them to just, like, not be, yeah. Also, Epirus is pretty hard if there's a Byzantine player or, regular Ottoman player. Or Venice, 2EH. And last honorable mention, anything regarding Ireland, assuming you have an England player that's aggressive. But then again, as Ireland, you may be able to build up, so it's not actually that bad, but it's still kind of challenging if there's an aggressive England. And that basically wraps up the video. There are some small countries I didn't really mention, but there's not much point in mentioning them because they're not actually that bad other than Medina. Because I think the Mamluks spawn with, like, claims of Medina, or they can claim Medina and they just go right in. So Medina's also pretty hard, but we're not talking about, like, this is more than one province, so yeah, that's about it. See you dudes.